I think that one of the things that's interesting that's happening right now with television is that we see so much of the language of the internet, the basis of content on the internet is quickly shifting from text to video. And we're having an explosion of the amount of video that's on the internet. And so what's ending up happening is something that's not quite television and not quite the internet. And it's a whole new form of video entertainment. And it's one that most people who are traditionally in the filmed entertainment business, and what I mean by that is people who are used to making television shows, or used to making films, or used to making news, aren't comfortable with, and that really don't understand how to take advantage of this medium. And what's happening even more is that a great deal of the video is now being consumed on a handset, on a mobile handset. And so one of the things that we found at MTV, because we were trying to figure out how are we going to reinvent television. At MTV, what we looked at was we needed to reinvent MTV for every new generation. So MTV is really targeted at people who are 14 to 24. And the same company that produces MTV also produces other networks like Nickelodeon, which is based really around kids who are about 14 years old and sort of age out at about 12. And one of our philosophies at MTV was if you got to a certain age, you got to about 25, 30, and if you still were watching MTV, something was wrong. I mean, we designed it so you were able to come to a certain point in your life and say, I don't get it anymore. We'd say, that's good, you move on. Then move on to one of our other networks like VH1, because MTV is really focused on young people. And by being able to reinvent television on the internet, we began to learn some important things about the way that television exists on the internet. One of them is, and by the way, at the same time, the way that the internet is influencing television. In the same way that 25 years ago, the short bursts of entertainment that you saw on MTV influenced everything from movies to TV shows. I mean, Miami Vice is a good example. The old Miami Vice television show was totally influenced on music video. And we began to learn that video on a handset and video on the internet, they need to share a couple characteristics. One of them was that it needed to be short. That anything more than 2.5 to 3 minutes, that the short attention span audience wasn't that interested in. Second of all, you needed to be able to provide some context so that and things that were much more interesting on the web than they were, or on a handset, that they were ever going to be on television. So for example, Motorola created a campaign with us called Head and Body, where a guy loses his head and the head is walking around without the body, and lots of people wanted to follow it because it was on a handset, you could only get it there. The third thing is that this explosion of user-generated content, really, it always seems like anybody can make a video and any video will have resonance. But in reality, the things that are really the most exciting on the web are those videos that, and yes, there's been tons of copies of the Coke and Mentos commercials, but the things that are really getting the most amount of views are the ones that are either they're mashups. It's where somebody's taken professionally produced content. So they've taken a show or a piece of a movie and they've been able to make something of it themselves. And of course, there's everything from mashing up the Apple television ads to scenes from movies, or they're clips right off of television that are most relevant. And there are ways in which you can now take video and make it so it seems like something that's viral. So at MTV, we created this campaign that was called Amo a Laura. And I don't know how many people here. How many people here know this campaign?
Pero no me voy a esperar el matrimonio.
Exactly.
Eso es puff on virginity.
Right, exactly. It was an ad that was basically promoting virginity. It was an anti-MTV ad, and we found that it ended up. It really, the purpose of the ad was it basically had a song about a guy saying that he loves Laura and that she's going to wait and he's going to wait. The ad was created by a fictional company, a fictional organization that was called the Preservation of Virginity, and we found and it was we created it totally separate from MTV. We created it in a way so that it was everywhere on the internet. By the way, in the United States, nobody understood it. When I showed it to my colleagues, they were like, "What is this? Like, I don't get it. Like, you know, we're against virginity. You know, we're promoting virginity. We're MTV."
Why don't you ask if anybody's seen it?
Anybody who's here from Spain, has anyone seen this?
Yo la campaña se llama Laura, pero esperaría el matrimonio. I loved it.
So I think that, and then in terms of television itself, I think that we have to expect that people who produce television, there's a couple things that they're going to have to keep in mind, and then I'll be glad to answer a question and let Martin call on the next victim. But I think that one of them is that it's no longer possible that you create something on television and it's just there. That people are going to take clips of it. So, you know, there's shows that are very popular. Heroes is an example of that. And people want to see it everywhere in the world. So the idea that you create a show in one country, the United States, and that it only stays there, and that it'll later on, 2 years later, it'll be on in France and in Spain is just ridiculous. People want it. It's going to be on the internet within seconds of it being on television, and it's going to either be on YouTube or it's going to be on Daily Motion or whatever it's going to be on. By the way, by the same token, there's shows that are created. I mean, for example, I live in New York City. My kids, and my family's all Hispanic, and my kids, there's a show called El Internado that's on Antena 3. And my kids want to see it. There's no way we can get it. So they go to Emule or BitTorrent and they download the show. I mean, they're not going to wait, and they're certainly not going to order the DVDs from El Corte Inglés. So I think that, first of all, television, wherever it's going to be everywhere at the same time. Second of all, it's going to be a medium that is going to be much, much more about short snacks of content versus longer forms. And I think the third of all is that it's going to be a medium that's going to be much more collaborative. Already, we're seeing a lot of clips that are coming in, news reports that are coming from people who are taking video with their cell phones or with the flip camera. I mean, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the flip camera, which now costs roughly, I think, 50 euros. And we're going to see everybody's going to have a video device in their hands. And so video is going to be much, much more about a democratized process where it comes from everybody. So with that, any questions? And if not, I'll hand it back to Martin.
No, let's see if there are any questions. Any questions on the future of television that anybody may have? Yes, Marco.
Can I ask a question, just looking forward to the future Blick generation? Could you share some of the challenges in handing over people once they come